Coming up on today's show, we're going to go back and look at some winners and losers for Denver coming out of the NFL draft, because you know how sports media works. It's grades and winners and losers. That is the backbone of the offseason media coverage. So I wanted to take a peek at who's coming out of the NFL draft in Denver's locker room with a smile on the face and who's coming out a little bit worried about their job. But before we do all that, we are in a sub-battle right now with our Saints channel here at Chat Sports. So help us take down Saints now. They've got a big leadish on us, but I believe in Broncos country. So hit that sub button down below if you want to win the Sean Payton trade, because this will be the unofficial but official marker of who wins the Sean Payton trade, a sub-battle between our Saints channel at Chat Sports. Now, let's look at some winners and losers from the draft, right? We're just going to go through Denver's locker room a little bit, go through the roster, and who comes out of this draft feeling more confident about their spot on this team, their standing, right, where they are on the roster, trying to make the 53-man roster. So with that being said, my first winner for Denver, I'm going to go with Javonte Williams, because there was a real shot that Denver might have drafted a running back, and that would have made things a bit uncomfortable for Javonte Williams and where he stood in this locker room long term with more or less a new-ish regime. You still got the GM that drafted you, George Paton, but Sean Payton looks like he's the one calling the shots right now. So Javonte Williams is probably smiling right now because Denver did not draft a running back, right? He's got the Brian Drew from draft day, a smile on his face, where they're so happy they didn't take Bo Callahan. So Williams, unfortunately, we all have to remember, he suffered a multiple knee ligament tears in week 4 against the Raiders. So it's not going to be a quick comeback for him, right? No one's got a good sense of when Javonte Williams will return. It's only May right now. There will be no football games until September, so they've got some time. But drafting a running back definitely would have signaled they might be looking to go a different direction at the RB position. Now, Troy Rank, who covers the team over at Channel 7, tweeting out back in February, as we're going to kind of go through a time machine here, Javonte Williams will remain in Denver this offseason as he continues his rehab from ACL surgery. He's in good spirits. I'm able to do everything they ask me to do. That's a good sign for a hell of a runner who was missed last season. That was February 13th. Remember that. Let's fast forward now. Coming out of the NFL Combine, Matthew Berry over at NBC Sports Now had a very intriguing write-up where he touched on Javonte Williams and added this: the most fascinating nugget about Denver, and possibly of the whole Combine, was about Javonte Williams' health, and I'm told there is a very wide range of possibilities regarding his return. There is a chance he is healthy to start the year. There is a chance he misses multiple games, and there is actually a chance he misses all of next year. I was told he is currently a lot more hurt than the team is letting on publicly, and that the Broncos are secretly nervous. Now, that was back in March 6th, so a lot has changed probably over the last 7-8 weeks or so as Denver formed their draft strategy, okay? And Chris Thomason, a new reporter for Denver, tweeting out back on April 20th, Broncos GM George Paton said running back Javonte Williams is doing well in his rehab. Says he'll be back this season at some point, but doesn't know when. Said if the best player available is a running back when Broncos draft, that could be a possibility at that spot. So I feel like there has been a surge of optimism and positivity around Javonte Williams, and maybe his return being on the sooner side than the later side, because they didn't draft a running back. And here on April 20th, George Paton is letting on that they expect him to play at some point. I still don't think that should be put down in stone, right? If Denver is off to a horrible start, they're not going to rush him back for the last couple of weeks if they're out of the playoff race. But Javonte Williams had a really promising rookie season, 903 yards, 7 touchdowns altogether. Unfortunately, he didn't really get off to a great start last year, if we recall. And then, of course, the very, very serious knee injury he suffered in week 4 cut his year short. So I want to give the guy some morale boost though, right? Show him some love from Broncos country. So spam 33, his jersey number, to show little Pookie some love. Let's let him know that Broncos country has his back and they are wishing him a quick and speedy recovery. So with Javonte Williams being our winner, our number 1 winner at least, my first loser is actually not one individual. It's just wide receivers in general. Because once Denver drafted Marvin Mims, he's not a loser. But the other wide receivers, they got put on notice. Because that was their first pick in this draft class, right? Denver went wide receiver to start the draft. Marvin Mims, he ain't the loser. It's the other wide receivers that might be out of a job now that one more guy has been added to the mix. Now, Denver reportedly received multiple trade calls after they drafted Marvin Mims because a lot of GMs were connecting dots going, wait a minute, you're drafting a wide receiver to start this draft? Can you move on from Jeudy and Sutton? And what's the asking price? Now, reportedly, Denver is digging in. They want a first for Jeudy and a second for Sutton, and no one is offering either of those picks. But does Mims put Sutton or Jeudy or even Tim Patrick's future, not so much Jeudy, more so Sutton and Patrick's future at risk in Denver? Because Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick are both coming off, not down years. You can't have a down year if you're off an ACL injury, but seasons that maybe doesn't make it very promising that they're going to be here long term, right? Unfortunately, that's just the reality of suffering an ACL injury in the middle of your career. Now, I want to look at the wide receiver room from a more zoomed in lens of locks to make the roster and bubble guys. Because let's say Denver takes 6 wide receivers. That's somewhat par for the course. Maybe 7, but let's go with 6. Well, Jeudy, Patrick, Sutton, and Mims, they are all locks. They have already got a roster spot for the 53-man roster. Now, I don't think KJ Hamler's a lock. I can't stand here today and say, without a doubt, he makes this roster. There is just a hint of a doubt, so I got to put him in the bubble tier. Marquez Callaway, I thought would be a lock, right? But if Jalen Virgil and Kendall Hinton and Montreal Washington, along with Brandon Johnson, outplay Callaway, well, maybe he does lose that roster spot after being signed in free agency. Ultimately, if I had to pick 6 receivers right now, I think these are going to be your 6 53-man wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and I went with KJ Hamler, but I'm not confident in that one. And Marquez Callaway. Honestly, I'm more confident in Callaway than Hamler right now, but if you get more training camp injuries like we had last year, unfortunately, that could open up an extra roster spot. Now, let's take a look at Sutton and Patrick more specifically, right? Why does drafting Marvin Mims make them losers? Well, I'm looking ahead here, and I'm looking at their 2024 cap hits. And Courtland Sutton's is $17.3 million. And Tim Patrick's is $13 million. So if either of these players do not live up to their paychecks in 2023, Denver's going to take a good hard look at their contracts and go, we just drafted Marvin Mims last year at this point. He had a good, promising, whatever you want to call it, fill in the blank rookie season. Maybe it's time to save some money, move on from one of these 2 players because Marvin Mims is ready to step into a bigger role in 2024. Before we look at my next winner or loser, make sure to check out the great deal over at Fanatics. Chatsports.com/DEN combo. Listen, we know that spring can always be a bit chilly in the Rocky Mountains, so they got a long sleeve t-shirt for you guys. But once summer rolls around and you want to wear a short sleeve Broncos t-shirt, they've got one as well. Plus, they're both on sale. So use our exclusive link right here, chatsports.com/DEN combo to get it today. Moving on, let's check out the next winner I've got. I'm going to go with number 3, Russell Wilson as my winner coming out of the draft. Denver did not pick a quarterback, and instead they did a lot of things to benefit Russell Wilson and make him a winner post-draft, right? Here are 3 reasons why I think Russ is a winner after Kansas City. 1, they added a speedy wide receiver. That's going to help Russell Wilson, right? That's going to stretch the field, and hopefully that's going to give him his Tyler Lockett in Denver that he really didn't have last year. Number 2, they did not draft a replacement for him, right? That's got to make Russell Wilson feel a lot more comfortable that they didn't go quarterback early in round 3, right? If they had traded up and instead of getting Riley Moss, they went QB, that would definitely send some signals to Russ's camp of, you better bring your A game, otherwise we are making investments elsewhere. And my third reason is they addressed the last need on the offensive line that they had, center. They went to get Alex Forsyth to improve the offensive line that allowed the second most sacks of any quarterback in 2022. So barring any major injuries, I think this new-ish regime with Sean Payton, who is the king now, he's giving Russell Wilson everything he really needs to be successful, right? New offensive play caller, revamped offensive line. I mean, talk about an investment in Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey, drafting a center, completely redoing the offensive line, adding another wide receiver. A lot of things have gone Russ's way to make him successful in 2023, and we all hope he is. But if he's not, don't be shocked if they decide they're going to go a different direction after, hey, we got you a new offensive line. We used our first pick on a wide receiver, and we did not see a big upgrade from these numbers that he posted last season. 3,500 yards and 16 touchdowns, right? We did not just spend all this money on a new left guard and a new right tackle and go wide receiver, which we traded up to get, to give you all the keys to be successful just to have back-to-back down seasons. If that happens and everyone's healthy, wouldn't rule out a change at the quarterback position after just 2 seasons. So what's your confidence level in Russell Wilson right now? Scale it 1 to 10, 1 being it's somehow lower than it was during 2022, 10 being he's going to get back to that Pro Bowl, MVP caliber player that he was in Seattle. I'm at a 5.6. It's above 5.5, so like psychologically it sounds bigger. That's what she said. But I still got scars. I still have scars from the Colts overtime game, from a lot of games, if we're being honest. So I got to see it to believe it first. Let's move on and look at our next loser now. This is Lloyd Cushenberry. Unfortunately, Lloyd was almost a winner. And then right before the draft ended, they went out and drafted a potential replacement for him, right? So Denver drafted the Oregon center, Alex Forsyth, at the end of round 7 as Cushenberry comes off a season that is one to forget for the former LSU Tiger, right? He had a long stint on IR, which more or less turned into him being a healthy scratch, right? He said publicly after the season, I was healthy at the end. They kept me on IR because they didn't want to give me a roster spot. In English, healthy scratch. So injury, healthy scratch, and unfortunately, just underwhelming in general, makes it a hot seat for the 3-year center. So I think this is going to be the number 1 training camp battle where you're going to see different guys get runs with the first team offense. Cushenberry, Kyle Fuller, not the corner, the center from Seattle, and now Alex Forsyth. I think we'll all have an opportunity to win that starting gig. Now, the career PFF grades for Cushenberry, like rookie year, not good. But that's fine. You're a rookie. Improvement in year 2, but maybe not where they still want him to be to know that he's their long-term center. And then a regression in year 3 really casts a big shadow of doubt for him long-term. My next winner, is going to be Garrett Bowles. So I go Garrett Bowles as my final winner here. The reason why I'm putting Garrett Bowles as my last winner is we're talking about a player who's coming off a fractured leg and unfortunately might not be ready to go week 1. Now, despite a whole bunch of trade rumors, Denver did not move on from him, and they ultimately stuck by him, right? They did not draft a tackle that could have been a Garrett Bowles replacement. Now, like I said at the top, he's coming off a fractured leg, so it easily could have been, explainable and justifiable for Denver to draft a tackle and say, hey, Garrett, this is not a replacement. This is simply a Band-Aid until you're able to come back from a pretty serious leg injury you suffered in the middle of last season. So it wouldn't shock anyone if you were unable to go week 1, week 2, or week 3, and you started the year off on IR. Now, Bowles' PFF grades over his career, the guy peaked in 2020. That's why he cashed in more or less. The start of his career, the holdings were very troublesome. Wasn't quite sure if he was going to be a long-term guy. Then he had a breakout season in 2020, cashed in, got a nice fat contract extension, and he's got 2 years left on that extension. And here are Bowles' cap hits over the next 2 years. This year, $17.8 million. In 2024, $20 million. So if Denver was thinking, which GMs like to do, for more than just 1 year at a time, right? Going, hey, in 2024, next offseason, we might be cutting Garrett Bowles because of this cap hit. If he's not good this year, it's probably going to be a cap casualty. Let's draft his replacement this year so that we don't just start a rookie left tackle in 2024. Ultimately, they did not go that route. Doesn't rule it out if Bowles has a down season, but it definitely makes you more encouraged for Garrett Bowles long term. So if 2023 does not go well for Garrett Bowles, he might be out of here. But if this is a good season for the former Utah Ute, well, I think he's going to stay, and 2024 will be his potential last year to prove he gets another contract extension. But a lot rides on 2023, and not drafting a tackle, I think, is a subtle, vote of confidence in Garrett Bowles being this team's tackle for the next 2 seasons.